Joining us now is E.W. Jackson. E.W., as you know, ran for lieutenant governor as the Republican nominee in 2013. He also ran for U.S. Senate 2 times, and he is joining us now. E.W. Jackson, we got a lot to talk about today. Is the country locking down? Virginia, the governor yesterday locked everything down. E.W., the governor of Maryland, Republican, Larry Hogan, wants to run for president 2024, says if a Maryland police officer pulls you over and you can't justify why you're out driving, you can go to jail, even though they're letting prisoners out of jail. Maybe you can help us, E.W., make sense of this whole thing. And, oh, by the way, Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York, says if churches and synagogues don't comply, he'll shut them down permanently. E.W., what is going on?
Well, I'll tell you something, John. Every American, whether you're a believer or not, whether you are Jewish or Muslim, whatever God you worship, every American ought to be profoundly concerned about this coronavirus situation being used by people of the left to exercise authority that I believe the Constitution does not give them. I mean, this very morning, I am working on a letter to Governor Ralph Northam, who, as you cited, I ran against and found him to be a very unsavory character, frankly, in the way he behaved toward me. But leaving that aside, I'm writing him a letter asking him to justify constitutionally the authority to shut down the state for virtually 10 weeks. 10 weeks. The president gave guidelines, which he's extended to the end of April. Why didn't the governor at the very least say, well, I'm going to follow the president's guidelines, and then we'll reevaluate it at the end of the month? No. He took this unprecedented, extraordinary step of declaring the state locked down for 10 weeks. And I just don't think he has the constitutional authority to do that. I think it needs to be challenged in court, and I think he needs to justify the constitutional and Virginia statutory authority whereby he thinks that he can, in effect, place the entire state under house arrest. I don't think he has that authority.
Well, E.W. Jackson, I've got his chief of staff, Clark Mercer, on my show at 8:35. What should I ask him? What would be the one question you would want me to ask him, sir?
I would say, what's the authority that the governor is citing that he thinks gives him the ability to place the entire state under, in effect, house arrest? Because you just said it. I mean, if we're going to have the police actually saying to people, why are you out? Do you realize what a fundamental change that is to who we are? That's transforming us into a police state. And I'm convinced of this. You can't set these kinds of precedents and not have it come back to haunt you. That's why I think the president took the right approach. The president gave guidelines. And I think most Americans are trying to comply with those guidelines. But he didn't say, we're going to send the FBI to arrest you if we find out that you have not followed these guidelines. Because we are still a constitutional republic made up of free individuals, and that is the primary basis of this nation. So I'll tell you, I think the governor is on very, very shaky ground constitutionally. Oh, and by the way, let me mention, in Florida, they just arrested a friend of mine on Monday morning, and they've arrested in Greensboro, North Carolina, 3 abortion workers who said, well, the abortion clinic is open. There are more than 3 people there. We're 3 people out here keeping social distance, and we're praying. And the police said, well, sorry, you can't be out. The state's on lockdown. But the abortion clinic can continue to kill babies, but you have to go home. So since you violated the order, we are placing you under arrest. I mean, something's wrong here.
That's sick. I mean, it's beyond something wrong. But here's the thing, EW, and I've been saying this for a month, right? It's easier the second time. That's my fear with this, and you hit it on the head. It's the precedent set. And not only the precedent set, but the new convincing of a new generation that the government has the right to arrest you, shut things down, do curfews, make you show papers. I mean, what are they going to do in Maryland? If you're driving, they have an order where they can stop you. Now, the way it works is if you're driving a car and you're pulled over by the police, which do a good job, all right, they have to have a reason. You had a taillight out. You had an expired tag. You crossed a lane. You're driving erratically, right? You didn't put your blinker on. You don't have your seatbelt on. They have to have something. Now, in Maryland, they can pull you over for absolutely no reason and ask you where you're going. If the police officer is not convinced that you have a legitimate reason for being on the road, They can handcuff you and put you in the squad car and impound your car. And you've done nothing because what? You don't have your grocery list? This is unbelievable.
And the thing is, the president of the United States is going to have to get his arms around this because people are using this in an opportunistic way to exercise authority that they should not be exercising. I mean, I think the president has been measured. He's been trying to listen to the experts, but he has not been running around, as they often accuse him, of acting like a dictator. He's been a leader. But we've got these people running around acting like dictators. And look, you're absolutely right. And I talked to a police officer yesterday, and he said to me, man, I don't want to be going around asking people, why are you out, and do you have a right to be out here? And I'm thinking to myself, look, you've got to have probable cause to stop and arrest someone. And probable cause is not, I decreed that everybody has to stay home, and that's, therefore, I can arrest anybody who doesn't. I mean, it just doesn't work that way in a constitutional republic that limits the power of government. And I hope that Americans are going to rise up and say, look, we are going to be responsible with this virus. We're going to deal with it, and we're going to be considerate of our neighbors. But we're not going to have the government assume and usurp to itself powers and authority that it does not have and turn us into a bunch of lemmings. That's not going to happen.
Well, but it is happening. And it's going to continue to happen. Nobody's going to do anything about it in Maryland, right? They're all just going to comply. Look, it's about complying and submitting. You have to comply with the government's rules. You have to submit to their authority, or bad things will happen to you. There will be consequences. Now, specifically in Virginia, Ralph Northam said he wouldn't do that. He said he has instructed all law enforcement officials to first give a warning and only revert to handcuffs if those warnings are not heeded. Not heat, but heeded, Heeded. So they have to be heeded, or he's not going to do anything. He's just going to give you a warning and disperse the crowd or whatever. But now you got de Blasio in Manhattan saying, look, I saw people at a synagogue. We're going to come in, we're going to shut it down, and if it happens a second time, I'm going to close them permanently. On what authority? Do you close a synagogue or a church permanently on what authority? You just have a decree and you just close it? Now we're going to decide what churches stay open and what get closed permanently? Are you kidding me? This is America.
Well, remember, de Blasio's hero was Fidel Castro. And I'm not saying that tongue-in-cheek. That's the truth. I mean, he had a great deal of admiration for Fidel Castro. And I think he's now got an opportunity to act like Fidel. And apparently that's what he thinks he wants, because, when Fidel took over, he closed the churches and closed the synagogues and put pastors and rabbis and priests in prison. They had to escape if they wanted to live or if they wanted to be free. And so de Blasio is following, apparently, the model of one of his heroes. But that's the thing. I've been saying this all along, John. I haven't heard many people saying it, but some have, but not many. I've been saying, look, we've got to keep one eye on this coronavirus. No question about that. It's serious. We have to take it seriously. But we also have to keep an eye on the Constitution and the economy, because we, as a free people, our economy is important too. I mean, if we lose our liberty and we lose our economy and we manage to maintain the coronavirus in a way that we're happy with, what have we really done? What do we really want? I mean, in my view, we've lost even that which, for us as Americans, is at least as dear to us as our lives, which is our liberty and our ability to do what we need to do in order to take care of ourselves and our families. So I think these leftists, frankly, primarily, who lean left, even no matter what their party, have gone completely overboard. And by the way, John, let me mention, Singapore, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea have all dealt with this virus without the shutdowns. They've done it by targeting the places where the virus erupts, by very specific tactical quarantining, and they've managed to do all of that. They've kept their schools open. They've kept their businesses open. And these people, Ralph Northam's shutting us down for 10 weeks? What does he think is going to be the result of that?
Now, he says he might reconsider that, and I guess he wants to bring closure and go to the outside. But, I mean, businesses can't survive 10 weeks. I mean, we have said this, EW. You're a small business owner. You own radio stations like me in New England. I mean, you get this. we can survive a month. We can do April, right? There's enough money coming in, whether it be loans or checks to people. We can survive April. You start getting into May and June, millions of businesses simply go out of business. They can't reopen. I mean, you just can't turn the spigot on June 12th. It doesn't work that way. So millions of businesses go under. Those jobs are gone forever. People are going to have to claim bankruptcy. Nobody gets paid. Why would you do this?
Well, look, let's face it. One of the things you'll end up with is a lot more people dependent on the government dole. And I've always said that, socialism, this leftist, progressive vision for America is to have everybody become the slave of the government, to have everybody depend upon the government. So you close down all these businesses, and now what have you got? You got a bunch of people dependent upon whatever the government is going to do for them. And that's exactly, we were moving in the opposite direction. And now, as Rahm Emanuel said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Well, these lefties and mostly Democrats seem to have learned that lesson well, and they are taking full advantage. And the American people, here again, I'm recommending that people call the Capitol and ask and demand that the governor justify constitutionally and statutorily, both federally and Virginia, his authority to do what he's doing, because I don't think he has it.
Well, we're going to find out at 8:35 when his chief of staff comes out. But I got to tell you, E.W. Jackson, you are spot on today. We're with E.W. Jackson, former candidate, lieutenant governor, Virginia, ran on the Republican ticket with Ken Cuccinelli and Mark Obenchain in 2013. Also candidate for U.S. Senate for the Republican nomination there. And a small business owner. But I got to tell you, E.W., you're so spot on, because we're training an entire new generation in this crisis. Two things. Number one, you have to submit and comply. Non-compliance, and if you don't submit to the government power, bad things will happen to you. Number two, right? When you need something, you don't look inward, you don't look to yourself, you don't look to your own opportunity, you don't look to your own ability to provide for yourself. Where do you look? You turn to the government. They will provide you with the money. They will provide you with the job. They will provide you with a check. They will fix it for you. They will solve your problems, and then you will be owned by them. But you have to submit and comply. Those are the new rules. That's what we're teaching here, a new generation.
And John, here again, I don't mean to be overly dramatic about this, but I think this is the truth. Has every country taken over by communists said anything different? No. What they say is, you must comply. We are the leaders. You will comply. And then ultimately, as I've said before, it ends at the point of a gun. And now here we are talking about people being arrested. This is just, it's a nightmare, John, of unbelievable proportions. And I think this whole thing started, I've been saying all along too, folks, don't panic. Don't let an atmosphere of fear take over our country. And see, that's what makes this possible. It's a crisis. It's a crisis. We've all got to do. And somebody like you or me saying, well, wait a minute. Let's back off here. Oh, you don't care about your neighbor? Of course we do. We're doing and should do every responsible thing we can do to see to it that this thing doesn't spread. But I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can also protect our Constitution while we're doing that.
Well, it's getting trampled on right now. And, you look at history, E.W. Jackson, and every time you have a totalitarian government take over, the first thing they say is, we're going to do this to keep you safe, right? Yep. We're going to take your guns to keep you safe. We're going to get all powerful to keep you safe. We're going to provide you protection and safety. That is always the excuse for government overreach. They're going to keep you safe. And that's what's happening now. As far as Virginia is concerned, I understand what the governor did, and maybe he will have the ability to relax this over time. But apparently he was upset because Generation C kids were running around the beach. So, okay, close the beaches or something. Exactly. What does it have to do with going to the drugstore or walking your dog in Southwest Virginia? There's no beach there. Close the beaches if that's what you're upset about. close the beaches to anybody sunbathing. That you can do that in 5 minutes, right? Instead, you lock down the entire state for 10 weeks. Unbelievable.
And John, that's a constitutional principle, which is, yes, the government can sometimes encroach on the fundamental rights of the people when the government has a compelling interest, but it must also always do so with the very least drastic means, with the most tailored approach it can, so that it doesn't impact Americans' freedom any more than it absolutely has to. And you're right. This is painting with the broadest possible stroke. We are all under house arrest. Don't you dare come out of your house. Oh, but I like this. I will allow you to come out to get some fresh air. Well, thank you very much. I can actually breathe American air. Aren't you kind?
I just got this text in from Michael in Norfolk who says the governor of California, Newsom, just issued an order last night that making auto repairs, get this, making auto repairs at your home is illegal. So you have to go to a garage and drop your car off. And the thinking there is if you're doing your auto repairs at home and outside, people could congregate to help you, so you have to drop your car off. So now you're stuck inside and you can't work on your car. I mean, what is next, right?
Yeah.
I mean, my son, my son Joseph, I mean, he's an avid workout kid, and when this was coming down, working out is the most important thing to him. He has a very determined regimen. You've met him many times, as you know how he is. So ahead of time, before it all ran out, I got a home gym in the garage. We got the stuff in. We put it up last weekend because I knew this was happening. The next order that I'm going to get is you can't have a home gymnasium. That's going to be the net. I mean, it's insane. What? You can't work on your car at home? What?
And look, and here again, but look. Now, is that about this? Like I've said about curfews. Somebody I know was having dinner with a friend, and the friend said, "Oh my goodness, looked at the clock. Said, I got to go. So, what's the problem? So, we have a curfew in my county, and if I'm caught out after 9 o'clock, I could get arrested. What? I mean, what does that have to do with curbing the virus? One person in their car at night after a certain hour, and so this is clearly about control. It's about control.
Exactly. And you have to submit and comply.
Yeah,
and you will be arrested and shamed on social media if you don't comply. And now what these governments have done is they've set up rat lines where you can call and rat out your neighbor. What does that remind you of?
Right. Yep.
What does that remind you of, EW? Yeah, somebody could rat you out today and say, I saw EW walking his dog 3 times. He's only allowed twice. Cops at your door.
That's exactly what
Fredericks,
communist cells do. Yep.
Rat out your neighbor. John Fredericks Radio Network, Trucking the Truth.